So hi everyone. This is our Emmy Action, very, very informal sort of Q&A. There's a Q&A app that should be enabled, which you'll see in the upper right-hand corner of the video, and that will allow you to ask questions as well as up and down vote questions so that we can have a sense of sort of what are the most pressing comments or questions on your minds. The goal of this Hangout was really just well, first, I'm really bad at writing now, so it's easier for me to talk. But to really kind of just give an opportunity for us to explain our vision for the platform, tell you where we are in the process, get some of your feedback, and also enlist your help. We're doing a very big call for volunteers, all hands on deck, which we'll talk about a little bit later. Just to give some brief introductions, my name is Jen Brea. I'm an ME patient and have been sick for about 4 years, and many of you might know me through the work that I've been doing on my film, tentatively titled Canary in a Coal Mine. And so this is a totally separate project, but hoping to create some good infrastructure for all of the things that we hope to do in the next few years. I'll let Beth introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Beth Mazer. I am an ME patient who has been sick for about 5 years now. And my background is in software and technology, and so Jen and I have been working together to come up with some ideas to help the community organize and hopefully get a lot of exciting actions, I can say campaigns done to improve all of our lives. So I hand it back over to Jen.
And I would say that there's a little bit of confusion about starting a Google Hangout on air. So the original link doesn't go to this page. So if you have any friends that are trying to figure out what's going on, please do help them, and please tweet the correct link on Twitter or share it on Facebook so we can try to get as many people here listening as possible. So I guess as we've been conceptualizing this project, there are sort of 4 components that we're going to talk about today. The first is a mission statement, and I'm going to explain sort of what I think is a good kind of rough draft of that, and that's really sort of a very kind of narrow set of just principles that we hope can guide the organization in the long run. In addition to that mission statement, we want to come up with a set of operational guidelines and rules, so you can kind of think of something that's really, kind of core in terms of our essence, and then a set of guidelines which are really going to be kind of more up for grabs and ready for improving upon whenever, as we evolve and grow as an organization. We also have a set of tools, which are the technologies that we're hoping will empower this platform, as well as a brand, which we are hoping will in itself be a resource that all of us can use as we go about in our advocacy efforts. So our sort of first draft of our mission statement is to make health equality for ME patients a reality by empowering a dynamic, self-organized patient movement. And so I think there's 2 things that I think are key for me in there. One is really this call for equality and dignity, for being given only what we deserve, and for this really to be a movement. And I think that there are definitely roles for more traditional advocacy organizations, and we have a lot of them out there, as well as some new ones starting up. And I think it's really great that there are a lot of different people who are doing work in this space, but we're trying to do something a little bit different and fulfill a very specific niche, which is by, instead of having a group of a few people who are guiding a policy or a set of strategies, to really try to have a more bottom-up kind of mass structure and mass movement. And so I think some ways to explain that, well, I think first of all, there's a website called 350.org that I think embodies a lot of both the tools and the philosophy that we're hoping to use, and so I highly recommend checking that out. I also think that I think what makes us different really is that the leadership and right now it's me and Beth. We're in conversation with a lot of different volunteers and board members, but the leadership, our goal is not really to set policy or strategy per se. It's really to make sure that the community stays healthy, to keep the site running, to improve the technology, to really be stewards of the platform. But in terms of what we do and where we go, that is entirely up to you. And it's entirely up to who joins, who chooses to create actions, and kind of what comes out of a process that I hope will be sort of radically decentralized and radically democratic. And it's a scary thing in some ways because we won't always be able to control the outcome. We won't always agree with the sort of strategies that people choose to adopt. But we want more action and more voice, and to try to create an ecosystem for a lot of really creative and new types of approaches to moving the needle forward. And in terms of the kind of guidelines, I think it's sort of there's a kind of challenging balance between being radically democratic and decentralized, and then also having a clear voice and a message for the outside world. And so I think that striking that balance is going to be a challenge, and that'll really happen through these sets of kind of rules and policies, which we're hoping to kind of draft internally, open up for a massive consultative process, and then vote on. And so one of the kind of core values, I think, is that we really want to make sure that what we're doing is reflecting the majority view in the patient population and the things that we can really find consensus around. So let's see. And I guess the last thing I think that we really want to have be a core part of our culture is to create a space that is dynamic, where we can disagree, where we can actually fight, hopefully constructively, but for it to be a safe space for sick people to become empowered, and to always remember with compassion that that this is hard. It's hard to be an advocate, and that we have to sort of take care of each other through this process, and that we can all agree on the fundamentals of our quest for equality, even if we don't always agree on strategy. So I know that might sound a little bit vague, and in some ways it is, in as much as this is something that we're going to have to kind of work on developing together as we move forward. But I hope that gives you guys a sense of some of the core kinds of values and philosophy of what we're trying to do. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Beth, who will tell you a little bit more about some of the concrete tools that we're hoping to use to help us, become more effective virtual advocates. I don't see any questions in the Q&A yet, but if you're just joining us, there should be a Q&A button on the upper right-hand side, and you can click on it and add questions, and we'll answer them after we're done with our little presentation. So Beth, if you want to go and kind of chat a bit about some of the tech solutions.
Sounds good. Are you able to hear me okay?
I can hear you fine.
Sorry, I just wanted to make sure that you could hear me okay. Great. So thanks, Jen. Our goal is to go live as soon as we've built out a minimal tool set that we think will allow advocates to be effective. And then as soon as we're live, we're going to be able to learn from everyone's experiences and hopefully grow the platform and community over time. So we don't want to pretend like we know what the end platform is going to be, because there are so many lessons that we're going to learn once we see how people actually use the site. We looked at a lot of platforms, especially by looking at sites like 350.org and other advocacy sites in different fields, to see what they're using and to see what seemed effective for them. So far we've selected a core set of tools and resources that we think is going to help us accomplish our vision. The first is a platform that is made by a company called Control Shift Labs. They're used on 350.org and some other activist sites. So if you look at 350.org, you're going to see this list of different actions and campaigns that users have organized. The key thing about Control Shift Labs is that they're member-created campaigns, and that's going to allow for activists to self-organize and scale projects without having to go through a gatekeeper. So you're not going to have to reach out to anyone who's officially the leadership of this organization. because we want everyone to have an opportunity to come up with ideas, and hopefully those will bubble up to the top. The best ideas will bubble up to the top. The tool also allows people to organize events. And so, for example, you could picture it being a good tool for organizing a protest in Washington. You could assign different tasks to people and at least have some, know who's going to be coming. It also has modules that will help us build the community and will allow for fundraising. We're going to integrate that with WordPress, so the front, which WordPress is behind, I don't know the percentage, but let's say half the sites on the internet. So it's very flexible, and it allows for integration. So that will be a front page, and eventually we'd have things like a blog on there. We're also going to give organizers the ability to find other people with skills that you need for an action. So sometimes it can be, maybe you're creating some posters and you're looking for a graphic designer, or you're looking for someone to build out a fundraising. You're trying to build out some fundraising, and you're looking for someone who has experience in development. So the site would allow for you to find people like that who are looking to help. We also are going through building out some voting and polling technology, and that's going to allow us to be as democratic as we can, so that everyone in the community can vote on bylaws and other topics that are important to the community. So we can determine what people, want the guiding rules to be. We'll also provide printed training modules as well as virtual workshops. They're going to draw upon the skills of professional organizers and veteran activists from all around the social issue landscape. And finally, there'll be tools, and this will be part of the kind of campaigns you can create, that will allow you to contact or petition members of Congress and Parliament in the UK. And then hopefully we'll be able to expand to other countries as we grow bigger, because this is going to be, we want this to be an international platform, not just focused on the US. And right now we're actually under development with a very talented graphic designer named Justin Kemmerling, which I think Jen posted a few months back on the Facebook page. And he's creating a professional brand concept that can be used by activists around the world. And so, yeah, that's sort of at least a quick walkthrough of the technologies that we're looking to use right now. And so I'll let Jen walk through some of the examples of what you could do on this platform.
Sure. So one of the things that's really exciting about the Control Shift technologies, which I think will probably be a part of the original launch, is that it allows you to sort of start an instance of an action, and then for other people to kind of pick that up and scale it. So one example is, let's say you wanted to start an event, and the event was a sit-in at your local congressperson's office. Just to give an example, you can sort of say, I am doing this event, in Albany on this date, and it's called this thing. And then other people can say, hey, I think that's a really great idea. I am going to start, I'm also going to do that, in Tallahassee, and I'm also going to do that in London. And so you can actually sort of start kind of these global days of action where anybody can take the concept and the tools that an organizer has initiated, and then sort of scale, sort of create instances of that wherever they might be living. And so I think that'll really help to create, massive media events and allow people to localize, the best ideas and the best actions that are kind of being generated from around the world. The other thing that's really great about this is that the more we do, the bigger we grow, in the sense that as we are all engaging with this platform to hopefully create a lot of effective actions, it brings more and more people to the platform. So one of the core reasons why I wanted to do this is because I get people all of the time asking me to share content on my films page. And we have almost 6,000 likes on Facebook, and it's really hard, and it takes a long time to develop a platform. And then what ends up happening is you have these gatekeepers in the community who have, popular blogs or popular Facebook pages, and so part of the concept is, rather than every time we start a new thing, trying to reinvent the wheel and grow a following, what if all of the things that we were doing were all feeding into the same place so that we could grow bigger and bigger and bigger? So that anybody who just sort of came online, had a great idea, didn't have a mailing list, didn't have a following, that idea could bubble up in the community and it could be broadcast to, I hope, tens of thousands of people. And so it just allows, I think, there to be more dynamism and more voices in this movement, which is what we definitely need. So to talk about some of the examples. So one of the key things is that actions can be started by individuals or organizations. So we are really eager to have individual activists starting actions, but we're also very open to having other organizations partner with us or to use some of the tools on our website for a specific actions or goals that they're trying to achieve. In terms of, I think in addition to individual actions, I'm hoping that the ecosystem might generate working groups. And so, it's, I'll make no secret of the fact that we're hoping to create a kind of virtual, ACT UP, a kind of ACT UP for the internet age, and so I think that there is definitely a need for something like a treatment action group, so a group of people working who follow the science very closely, and who are working to come up with a set of patient priorities about how we want our research funds allocated, what we think the most promising directions are, what we think are the most important questions to ask first. I think there's also a big need, for example, for something like a legal defense fund, which might be a combination of money and lawyers who can respond quickly to emerging situations in the U.S. and in Europe, as we all know that there's still a really big problem with these sort of forced institutionalization cases. Someone in the community brought up an idea of an anti-defamation league, which I think is amazing, and more broadly, we want to be working on changing media perceptions and doing that in an organized way. So we're hoping to really be able to create these sort of flexible working groups all under these umbrellas that can start addressing the issues that people sort of care about most. I don't know, Beth, if you have any other ideas or some examples of how the tools might be used. There'll also be fundraising tools as well as petition tools. And I also think, I guess last thing I would say, I think the training is really important because, in terms of my outreach to some of the veteran AIDS activists, I think one thing that I realized is no one showed up on day one and knew how to do this. It's something that you have to learn how to do, and I think that part of our job is to try to go out and find the best models and find the best ways that we can learn and how to adapt that to our own unique circumstances, right? We can't go out and do these huge marches. Maybe we can recruit healthy allies too, but there are other things that I think we could do quite effectively. So I think learning from those movements and trying to adapt those strategies for us is a really important part of the process. I don't know, Beth, if you have any other ideas about examples. Otherwise, we can open it up to some questions.
No, I think that's a really good list of examples. So yeah, hopefully some more will come up as people ask questions and share some ideas.
So there's a question from Donna Pearson, which is, do we intend to become a patient organization, or will we strictly be a platform for advocacy and event planning? I'm not entirely sure, I guess, what a patient organization means in this sense. I don't know, Beth, if you want to take a stab at that, or sort of...
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure also exactly what we'll define a patient organization as. Certainly our focus is going to be being the platform for advocacy and event planning, and as Jen mentioned, we want other patient organizations to be able to use this platform and be able to create their own actions. That said, since although we'll be doing this as, hopefully in a very democratic way, we will occasionally promote certain campaigns that we think represent what the community is looking for. So in that way, I think that will mean that there'll be a little bit, it's hard to say exactly that would make us a patient organization, but we will be putting our imprint on some things that could make us look more like a patient organization.
Well, and I guess if the question is, are we going to be doing some of the things that some of the other organizations are doing already around sort of patient outreach education or things like that? I mean, I think the question is, I don't know. It's sort of, I mean, honestly, we're going to follow. We're going to follow whatever the community wants and thinks that we you know, thinks that we need. And, you know, I think we definitely want to try to fill a niche that we feel hasn't been filled yet, and that's really in the kind of virtual organizing space. So I hope that helps a little bit. Donna, if you want to ask a follow-up question. Oh, education materials for new. Yeah, so I don't think, so in terms of providing new educational materials and being a place for patients to learn about the disease, I mean, I don't think that that's part of one of our primary goals. I think what we'll probably do is definitely have information like that on our website, in as much as we would hope to direct people to resources that might already exist, providing that kind of information, just because people might stumble upon us and that might be their first point of contact. I don't know that that's going to be our primary goal, but I think that if there are some gaps that people identify with respect to what's already out there that they want to fill, that's something I think we're definitely open to, but it's not really, I think, the primary focus at this point. Eddie says we should connect, not replace. I think that's definitely true. We don't want to reinvent the wheel, but I do think we want to listen to what you guys think and kind of try to make happen whatever you want. I mean, honestly, the sky is the limit. I mean, it's you know. I will go and I will whale hunt for like whatever we need to get this to make this happen. Let's see. Apart from a lack of strong centralized leadership, ACT UP and Larry Kramer had really strong individual counterculture voices, and I'm wondering how people can do this if they are not feeling well. I think we need to do something like a.
I think
I'm sorry, Ying. I think. Do you want to take a stab at answering that, Beth?
I think that it ends with something like a March on Washington, right? The next item down.
I think I was wondering what you. Oh, so okay, so yeah, this importance of centralized versus decentralized leadership, because Occupy sort of fell. I'm not sure where it fell. I mean, I guess that
actually, just to be clear, that's the first paragraph. That's
Oh, okay. Sorry. So Occupy fell apart because of a lack of strong centralized leadership. Yeah. Well, I think broadly this falls into the theme of this question of decentralized versus centralized. And I think to the extent that there are leaders, I think leaders will emerge. I think that there's already some of those roles in the community. But I think in terms of some types of formal leadership, we will probably have some sort of governance structure. But we want to. It'll be elective. Like it'll be to the extent possible something that is our approximation of aggregating what the community wants and the people who they want for them, at least within the context of this organization. So I guess we want to be really decentralized, but we also want to be sensible. I think that's the best answer I can give to that question. Beth?
Yeah, I mean, I think that captures at least my view on this well. There's gonna be guiding principles, and we're gonna be making sure that everything's going toward the same vision. Whereas Occupy was so fully decentralized, so there was no one at least making sure that everything was sort of fitting toward this end goal. Like in our case, to get health equality.
So Donna is
is
recommending,
recommending,
and I appreciate this because I can't actually see what it looks like on your end, but that we might suggest that viewers click the little Rubik's Cube type icon on the top right of the video screen, and then they can see the Q&A and submit questions. So, okay, let's see. Other +2 questions. Beth, can you see the questions also?
I can, yeah.
Do you want to pick one?
Well, I guess the first one is if I just put my headset in, so if anyone could type in to let me know if that echo gets removed. Actually, I found one good question was, let's see, it's from Kit, and it says, how is this different than creating a group on Facebook where anyone, a popular blog or not, can also congregate, stage an event, fundraise, vote, etc., and where most already have an account, already know how to use it, which is important for cognitive problems. So I think that's a great question. And I think the way that, we're hoping that there'll be a lot of advantages here. One is similar to what, I like that the +4 for the echo, so hopefully this is better now. So as Jen was saying right now, there's a lot of gatekeepers. And it's not people who've chosen to be in that role, but people who have a popular blog or Facebook page, attract different people to that site. So there's not really one place where everyone comes together to look at different events. And so I think for people with cognitive problems, I mean, I still had some issues, and early on when it was, bad off, I had no idea what actions I could take. It was pretty overwhelming. What site do I, what Facebook pages do I even look at? What blog, what are the blogs that are informative? Is there anything I can do to actually reach out to Congress? So a platform like this will mean that there's one place someone could go to, and my vision for this is that someone could go there and they could take 5 actions in 5 minutes without having to do much work. So for example, you could click on a petition that's going to be sent to Congress, and because this platform has that built in, you can fill out your name and your address, hit send, and it'll go to the appropriate congressman. And then you could go and potentially you see some fundraising for research, which is another question here, and you find that interesting. You could send that link to your friends both in the community and healthy allies. And you could see that maybe there's a sit-in somewhere, and you can sign up to be part of that event. And so I think that there's going to be a lot of advantages to having a centralized place, and then it's not going to have to have there's not going to be some strong opinion about what the right things to do are. You can figure out what the ones that you think are going to make the biggest impact. You want to add anything to that, Jen?
No, I think that's right, and I think that Facebook is incredibly easy to use and is already a really dynamic place for us. But if you're a Facebook user and you don't have a page with a following, it's actually hard to get the word out about what you want to do. It might eventually happen eventually, but I think it takes a lot of time. It took so long to develop the following that I have now, and I think we want to make that open and available to everyone. That kind of voice and influence. I'm just going to select this question because I think it's an important one to emphasize. Is this platform free? No. And by that I mean it's expensive. And I am seed funding it out of my personal funds because I'm happy to take that risk. But we will need to raise money to keep it running eventually. And we will also be relying on a lot of volunteer help to kind of put together the tech, and that's very high value time, so we're very, very grateful for that. But in terms of, is it free to users, yeah, we're not going to charge a membership fee or, pay this money whenever you want to start an action. I think that would create a barrier that we don't want to have. I think part of, again, so the other thing I wanted to say before about the idea behind this is it's not only that, we want to share the platform and the influence, but we also want to spread costs, right? So part of what's really great about having a platform like this is that we can pay for these expensive tools, but then have lots of people use them. And so in I think in the long run it'll actually be pretty inexpensive once we're able to build the organization up to a certain membership, where any type of we'll probably be mostly raising revenue through voluntary donations. Mina Jenkins. Okay, so this is really important. So let's see. So how will differences of opinion be handled? Will it be simply be majority rule, or will it be possible to have a variety of actions under one umbrella? So I think this is like the stickiest question that we have, and it's a challenge. And I think that's why kind of coming up with a set of governing rules is so important. I don't have an answer for that yet because I think that those rules will, and those kind of policies and principles and values, all those types of things are something that we will probably end up, again, drafting internally, but it's going to be developed through a very long consultative process. And I'm hoping that they'll have some degree of legitimacy by virtue of the fact that we can all, try to kind of work together on developing them. But in terms of whether it'll be majority rule versus a variety of actions under one umbrella, I think it's going to probably be a hybrid of both. So basically, anybody can start any action they want. And so in that way, it's radically democratic. I think the challenge is not, do we do this thing or do we do that thing? So I want to have a kind of let a thousand flowers bloom kind of sort of approach, but which maybe isn't the best reference or analogy. But in terms of I think it's really important that we have a certain level of coherence and coherence of message when it comes to communicating with the outside world. Because if we don't have that, then when we're communicating with the media, for example, it is going to confuse them, and it may actually undermine our credibility. So the best example I can give of this and of this tension comes from, at least what I understand of ACT UP by watching How to Survive a Plague. And there is a specific scene, there's two scenes that I remember. There's one scene, or actually several scenes, where you have these sort of internal meetings where people were fighting terribly, and they were screaming at each other, and I think it got quite personal. And this is sort of that, this sort of scene where Larry Kramer, bangs his fist on the table, and he's like, plague, and how can we behave like this when we're facing such a tremendous problem in front of us, right? But I think for me, it was helpful because it helped to normalize the conflict. I don't wish for that conflict, but to understand that happened within that movement. At the same time, there's this other scene where AIDS activists are staging a kiss-in at an emergency room, in a time in New York when AIDS patients were being turned away from the ER. And what you see is that the hospital management came and said, look, if you guys leave our ER, we'll talk to 4 of you and enter into some kind of negotiation. And what they did is they took a vote as to whether or not they would leave, and if they left, who would be the 4 people who would engage in that negotiation. And so if they didn't vote, then some people might have said, oh, okay, fine, we'll leave. Others would have stayed. So there's going to be situations where we need to speak with one voice, and that really is when we are communicating with the outside world, I think, on certain core issues. And I think but I think in general, we want to try to not censor people and to allow for a wide range of opinions within the organization. But it's going to be a hard balance to find. I think we can find it, and I think it's going to really be about trying to come to some type of consensus around what are the rules that govern us. So I hope that helps. I'm sidestepping the question a little bit, but I think we can solve it. I don't know, Beth, if you want to contribute anything to that.
No, I think that's a good description of what we're thinking, and we do recognize that that's going to be possibly the biggest challenge, figuring out how we can have a diversity of opinions and actions there, but figure out also a way that we are going toward one goal, and that we're sort of putting the any action imprint on the ones that the community agrees are priorities, and that generally there's a consensus on.
I mean, at the same time, I also think majority rules can be dangerous, right? Because it's like, there are so many examples through history where the minority was the moral force and the sort of early voice of change. And so I think we have to be really careful about um, understanding the downsides of majority rule as well. But again, I think that's something that we can all work through together. And this is more of a kind of two to many format. But I think we can think of when we're in that stage, other formats for trying to get a wide range of opinion about what you guys think will work. Um, so there's a question from Lenny Jason that has +8. What methods are you proposing to find out what issues the patient community has consensus around? How does one assess this? Once you have identified issues where most patients agree to a statement, what next occurs? Beth?
Well, I mean, I know, yeah, that's obviously part of what we're talking about here. And to be honest, part of it is we're going to figure it out as we're going along. But I was mentioning earlier that part of the tech is going to involve some voting technology. And then even when people are taking actions, you're going to be able to sort of vote up, again, any user can go and create some campaigns. People are going to vote those up. You're going to see which ones become popular, and then we can put that to a vote. But one thing Jen and I have talked about is, like, even how do you figure out what's the minimum number of people voting where we even can make a determination about consensus. I think a lot of that we're going to learn as we go along. But I don't know if this came up earlier, but one goal that I think that people may, may generally have a consensus around is possibly in the U.S. pushing for $100 million a year in funding, which a lot of the researchers and activists have been going toward. So if we were able to put that up for a vote, we're going to be able to see who, are the people who disagree, and if people disagree, we want to make sure that we understand their comments and their reasons. Maybe there's a different amount they want, maybe there's other priorities. So I think the big thing is just going to make sure that we allow everyone's voices out. But again, I'll let you take a crack at that as well. In terms of what next occurs, I just want to say that depends on which of the issues. For some of them, it's going to be the bylaws and the vision that we're publishing will be the next step. We would be updating that based on what people vote on. If there's certain campaigns or ideas and people are supporting sort of a specific goal, then that would mean that potentially some campaigns that are fitting that goal end up becoming on the front page of the site. And so those are some examples of what the next steps will be, depending on what people are doing.
So I think, and some of this is going to be hard to describe. I think it'll be easier to see once the site is live. But I think that in terms of how do we figure out what issues a patient has a consensus around? I mean, there's been so many surveys flying around in the last couple of weeks, and I think that is something we should be doing more of. Actually engaging in surveys to figure out what people think. And so I think we want to do a lot of that in terms of our process. I think that will help us to find our message and our mission. But I think in terms of the what next, I don't think we're not going to vote on, like, do we do this type of march or that type of what have you. I think people can do whatever types of actions or strategies that they want, and then obviously some of them will gain more or less support depending on how much people care about the issue, how much whether it's well conceived and envisioned and things like that. So I think the what next is really up to the community, but I hope that answers that question. But it's not. Beth and I are not going to sit together and think of what is the most perfect way to do this. Like, what are the rules we should have? How do we honestly have no idea. We have some intuitions, but I think we really want to have a lot of community feedback before we start moving, and to have that really be a living document that we revisit all of the time and can change. We can change if it's not working for us. So I think that's the best answer we can give at the present time. Lee is asking about, do we have a time frame for a rollout of the platform? Beth?
Well, I don't want to commit to a time right now. We're definitely working hard on getting this built out. My hope is that this is going to, what I was talking about earlier, this minimal tool set could come out in the next few months. But one of the things that I know Jen posted this on the site, we'll talk about it a bit, is it's also going to depend on the volunteers that we can have that can help us build the site out. So I think that's really the biggest limiting factor right now. But definitely as soon as possible is the is the short answer.
I'm sorry. I guess just to add to that, I mean, I think it's very realistic that we could have the minimal tool set finished within the next few months, and then kind of keep rolling out and adding features as we go forward. We are very close to being finished with the branding process, so that was one of the main things that we needed to kind of get on board. Will everything on this platform be entirely open? This is Holly. As in, will media be able to view our internal discussion versus only allowing the media to see the end product? I think that's a hard one because it's sort of, I mean, there'll be some type of registration process, but it's the internet, so we can't really prevent people from seeing, from joining and seeing kind of what we're up to behind the scenes. But honestly, if anyone cared enough to do that, I would be really happy. I don't think anyone's really paying that close attention right now, but. If it emerges as an issue, we can figure out a tech solution for that. But I think it's going to be hard to sort of be in the business of vetting individual users. Does that sound about right, Beth? Or
yeah, that sounds exactly right.
We're happy to go up to the hour as long as there are questions that people want. I mean, drop off whenever you want. If we see the audience crash, we'll stop talking.
So actually, I wonder if just so that we get to the questions about, or I guess the request for volunteers, I could sort of talk about that just for a minute, and then we could finish up the Q&A.
And you can keep asking questions.
Great, yeah. So for those of you who are interested in this and want to see this built out, we do have two pressing needs right now. And Jen posted on our site for volunteers for social media lead and project management tech lead, and we actually have gotten a good number of emails, and I will make sure that we get back to everyone in the next week. But we definitely could use more volunteers. The first need that we have is for a social media lead. So we need someone who is open to sharing the important ME news and ME Action Network updates on social media platforms, especially Twitter and Facebook. Ideally, we want someone who has ME because obviously if you have ME, you're probably most aware about what news is most important to other patients. We'd like someone who has the ability to dedicate 5 to 10 hours a week to helping share the vital information with the community and growing the community. The second role is, sorry, I know I sometimes talk a little fast. The second role is for a project manager and a tech lead. I talked to one person who sent an email, and he's going to definitely be helping us out with the implementation. But we're also looking for someone who has some technical project management skills and potentially some coding skills as well. So that person would communicate with some of these technical partners, for example, Control Shift Labs, which is the platform we're using, as well as the graphic designers. And then we'll work with the tech volunteers to make sure we get this built out. Ideally, we would want this person to be a healthy ally, so if you have any friends or family who would like to help out, that would be great. But if you're someone who has mild ME and feel you can commit about 10 hours a week of technical work, that would be great as well. And so there'll be some occasional meetings over Skype, and then a lot of the other communication will happen over emails and potentially on wikis. And then finally, we're looking for really a whole range of volunteers with a diverse set of skills, so community organizing, media, fundraising, strategic planning, all of this that can help us get this project implemented and help us when the site is up to organize the community. And also oh, sorry, go ahead, Jen.
No, please go ahead.
I was just going to say, we would really love to launch with a few strong campaigns as pilot projects. So if you have any ideas for an action that you would like to use the platform for, please let us know. You can send us an email or send us a message on Facebook, and we'll get back to you soon. So I'll let you. Want to add anything to that, Jen?
Yeah, so I just wanted to emphasize the power of healthy allies. So obviously we want a lot of patient involvement, and there will be that sort of naturally. But I was doing a little bit of soul searching as to why this has taken so long before with Beth, and because we've been kind of talking about this and working on it since last May. And, you know, I came to the realization, well, it's because we're both sick. And so, you know, this is, you know, part of it is this sort of ping pong of trying to figure out when we can both do things. I'm obviously also really busy with the film, but that team works really well because I'm the only sick person on it, and I have producers who can keep going and work reliably. So I think having a hybrid organization of patients and healthy allies is really important. So if you know people in your life who care about you and care about this issue, please talk to them about this. And if you know anyone who might be able to help with some of these core things that Beth was talking about, please do talk to them, because I think we want to have in every area patients and people who are well working together. And so there's a question that Kit mentioned, which or comment. That's a really good explanation. It'd be wonderful to have all of our options in one place. Maybe we could avoid so many repeat groups where many people want the same things but are spread out across different organizations. So I think that's definitely true. I think the one thing I would say is that when you look at other diseases, there's like tons of organizations. Like we feel like we have so many, and we actually have not a lot at all compared to what other people are doing. We have a patient population that's large. Some of it obviously is that we're working on like 10%. Like we're obviously there's a massive underdiagnosis problem. But I really want to emphasize that we are not trying to reinvent the wheel, that we want to fulfill a niche that hasn't been filled yet, that we want to work with other organizations and really kind of just always be thinking about like how can we use the energy, and how can we kind of link people to resources that already exist, and fill needs that are not being met yet. So that's the way we want to think carefully about, and we really welcome any organization to use the tools on our site if they think that it's helpful for any of the work that they're doing. Sophia asks about the name of our organization. The platform is called Emmy Action. Is Emmy the name we're going to be using on this platform? There is so much controversy about the name. I remember on an earlier Facebook post a couple of weeks ago, someone said, we should just call ourselves an unpronounceable symbol like Prince, which, like, if we could do that and that made sense, that would probably be the safest thing to do in terms of the name of the organization. It's funny because we're like far along in the branding process. I'm basically I'm almost finished shooting a film where no one's using the name SCID because it didn't exist during production. And right now what we have is a proposal from a committee. And so I think that nothing's happened yet, in the sense of there's still a lot of questions about how all that's going to be implemented. So I think for us, we all know that we don't like the name chronic fatigue syndrome, and Emmy it was a proposal by a U.S. body as well. And so we're an international organization, and I think right now, if we have to choose a name, it should be the oldest and most common name for the illness. So I think that's kind of where we're starting from. If in the future that has to change, we can kind of talk about that, but I think that seemed like the most feasible starting point, and it's also the most popular choice for a name. I know the community is really divided over the name, so it's not popular. It's depending on what poll you're looking at. It's sort of people vary in what they want, but I think it's the name that we have the most consensus around, and we need a name. So I think that's where we're gonna start from. I don't know if you have any more reflections on that, Beth.
No, that covers it.
I mean, yeah. It's a sticky thing. We'll have to sort of see how it goes.
Yeah.
I have my own personal opinions, but that's not really the point of what we're trying to do here at all. But I think you guys know what those are. So, okay, from Lisa. Will there be opportunities for effective advocate training, such as effective ways of communicating to those in power? i.e., the MS Foundation was very helpful in providing technical assistance for women to become better advocates in the HIV community. Yes, so definitely yes. We touched upon this a little bit earlier, but Whether it's sort of written materials as well as sort of training sessions, so sort of virtual seminars and things like that. We absolutely want to train people both in kind of practical skills, technical skills, and also just in sort of ways of thinking about how to communicate more effectively, how to engage in these actions more effectively. And so I know, like, in private conversations, I've learned a lot by talking to activists from other movements. And so I definitely want to do what we can to kind of lasso in some of those folks and share some of that knowledge. So, I mean, one of the interesting things that people might have forgotten is that in the AIDS movement, part of why they were so effective at organizing was because early on there was a group of lesbian activists who had joined the organization who were sort of just come off, the height of the women's movement and had been organizing for a decade and knew how to do that. And so we want to find those people who can come in and help us learn how to do this. Yeah, so I don't know if there's any other pressing questions. There are a couple of things that we might kind of answer offline or individually. I think the last thing I would just say is thank you so much for joining, and it's going to be a lot of work ahead, but I think this is something that we need, and I really I believe that it's possible to kind of flip our greatest weakness, our lack of health and our lack of mobility, and sort of flip it on its head. We are a powerful force online. We are scary. Every time I tell people, like every time I share a link to anything on my Facebook page, I kind of feel bad for the website taking in all of the incoming traffic. So there is a lot of energy and there is a lot of passion there. And I think that if we are strategic and creative, we can use that. And it means that we're going to have to invent new memes and new sort of resources and new kind of styles of protest. But I think that that's possible, and I think maybe we can be a model for other movements. Hi Beth, the pauses mean I welcome you to jump in.
Sorry, I'm not as practiced at this. But yeah, no, thanks to everyone for joining. And just as Jen's saying, I mean, this idea came out of actually a Thrive show that she hosted on May 12th, and Lenny Jason was on that. And we were talking about ACT UP and all these organizations that made a big impact in other illnesses. And the question was, how can we do something like that with the limitations that we have? And so our hope is that this platform is going to give us that capability. Like Jen said, there is a lot of passion out there, and there's a need to find a way for people to be able to use that passion for positive good. And I'm really hopeful that this platform will give people the ability to do that. So thanks so much for joining, and hopefully we'll get this out soon.
And if you have any specific questions or concerns or ideas, if you're like, this is so awesome, I'm so excited, or if you're like, this is awful, it's all going to fall apart horribly, whatever you think and whatever your concerns are or your ideas are, please email us. I don't really know how to easily flash something up across the page, but you can find me on Facebook. You can also tweet at MEActNet, and you can also email meactionnetwork@gmail.com. So we look forward to hearing from you and for staying in touch and sort of keeping you updated as we start getting the website ready to launch. Thank you so much again, and look forward to seeing you out on the interwebs soon. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.